Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. And if you haven't got the drift already this week, it is Correspondence Week as we work through 20 correspondents that we have, one for each Premier League club. James, do you want to introduce our guest this episode while I finish my toffee ice cream? Dodgy Segways Week. We're going to rename it Dodgy Segways Week.
Do you actually think of these things in advance, and they just come in your
they're
head?
just on in the moment, mate.
No, that's cool, because I was feeling bad for you, son, if you were actually fucking planning it. We are joined by the blue side of Merseyside. It is our Everton correspondent, Sean, at Spirit_Blues. How are you, Sean?
Hi, James. Hi, Sue. I'm all good. How are you, boys?
We're very well, thank you, mate. Yeah, not too bad. We've done about half the recordings now, and our drafts have probably changed several times over, I should think. Can you change mine again, mate?
I think what James is saying is there's no Everton players in his draft whatsoever. So are you going to convince us that there are any to buy?
No, this could probably be the shortest episode in Correspondence Week.
Okay, why? Tell me.
Why? Well, okay. So we haven't signed anyone. And despite all that...
At the time of recording?
Yeah. When does this go out?
Probably the 3rd.
Oh, not the 3rd? Okay, so I still don't think we'll have signed anyone by the 3rd.
True.
So I think it's very difficult to persuade anybody to look seriously at any Everton assets for the start of the season. Obviously there's the key sort of players in Richarlison, Digne, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, which I think people will obviously have some interest in. But outside of having them on a watch list at this stage, I just don't think there's too many reasons to be optimistic right now for us Evertonians. There's the chance that we could start off the season like we were playing prior to lockdown. But given the way that we performed post-lockdown, the lack of activity in the transfer market, and the fact that there's just hardly any break between the seasons, I think we're going to start slowly. I think it's inevitable.
I feel the same, in all honesty. But the one thing I think for yourselves and Crystal Palace, and for differing reasons, I feel like the two of you very much went into that period in the middle of nothing here particularly matters. I know you had an outside shot of qualifying for Europe if you did really, really well. But we spoke about this previously when you come on before the Bournemouth game, about the Chelsea game just felt like it shot everything. And then you had to linger on that defeat for like 2-3 months. And I think then to re-energise, whereas if you'd won that Chelsea game, suddenly you're looking at it thinking we could still qualify for Europe. You're mulling on a result for a couple of months. Then you come back in, you think there's not really much motivation. The motivation really was the first game, wasn't it? Don't lose to Liverpool. Keep that the way you want it to be. But beyond that, there wasn't a lot of motivation from that first set of fixtures. And I think the one thing we can't understand, Everton fall into a very rare case here where we don't actually know if that motivation will now be back. Because if you can find what was there in January and February, then you'll do all right. I just, a little bit like yourself at the moment, I'm very much stuck into the mindset of what I've watched of you anytime I've seen you in this summer, as generally speaking, been shy. Yeah. I thought you played a right first half against Leicester. You did quite well against Liverpool. You could have won the game, actually. And actually, you were better at Sheffield United when I watched you in game week 37. But otherwise, a lot of the performance was pitiful. You easily could have lost to Villa. You got well beat by Bournemouth. You should have lost to Southampton. The game against us, fuck me. Yeah, that would be... thank God we recorded on the podcast on a Monday and never actually reviewed that game for Planet FPL. Jesus, we didn't need to. My God. It was awful, mate. So I'm probably influenced quite a lot by that Tottenham game as well, because we were like a 4 out of 10, mate, and you were a lot worse. So it's that stuck in my mind, where I just think, in spite of a very good looking opening fixture list, and that's worth saying, mate, I'm just not really interested in your FPL assets.
I'm really interested in what James has said there. James, you mentioned the word motivation, right? The players weren't motivated in that period.
Tough, I get that.
But then you've also talked about the performances not being very good. Do you think that how much of the responsibility of the motivation of the players lies with the manager? Because with Ancelotti, you've got one of Europe's best. I don't think many people would deny that he's well up there. So is it that he couldn't motivate the players? The players didn't self-motivate themselves? Did he tactically set the team up wrong? Because I don't know if is it Ancelotti or the players? Let's just put it like that.
Well, I think when Carlo got the job, I can't believe that he will have been as aware as the fans of Everton were about how poor a lot of our players can be. And this is one of the issues that we've got as a club, and we've had for years, is the range in performances is just far too vast. And I'll pick a name, I could pick anyone, but Andre Gomez, he's come in for a fair bit of criticism lately from certain sections of the fans, and constructive criticism. Because this is a guy that come with a decent reputation, good age, big money. We had him on loan, spent £25 million to make it permanent, and he either puts in a 2 out of 10 performance or an 8 or a 9 out of 10 performance. And I think there's a lot of players that applies to, and I think that's what shocked Ancelotti. So Richarlison's a player who's very much a player of moments. So when you look around the team, other than Luca Digne and arguably Mason Holgate and Yerry Mina when he plays, it's surrounded by players that will either be pretty good or absolutely awful. And I think that's what shocked Ancelotti, at just how bad so many players can be consistently. And going back to where James was talking earlier, and you look at post-lockdown, and yes, I do believe a big part of the motivation went because they realised they didn't have a realistic chance of getting into Europe. And I think that's what shocked Ancelotti, that the fact that just because the minute it looked like, oh, well, it's gone, they've almost just been like, well, what's the point? What have we got to play for? Now you look at Southampton. I looked at Southampton, and there's a team that I think we all had the manager down as being out the door once they got rinsed by Leicester. What a fantastic turnaround! But then to come out of lockdown knowing that they weren't going to get relegated, but yeah, I think there's only a couple of teams that actually took more points than them. I'm sure they were third in the post-lockdown table, and James touched on it earlier. They were comfortably the better team. Goodison by a mile. I mean, that should have been 3-4-0 at half time, and we couldn't have had any complaints. But Richarlison, you get to sniff, scores a good goal, and we managed to defend well and got a point out of it. But I'm not convinced that enough is going to be able to change in such a short space of time, especially given the fact that we've had one pre-season friendly, which wasn't great, against Blackpool. Now they go off on international duty, so they'll miss 90% of the squad. They'll miss the next 2 friendlies, and then the season starts and we're away at Tottenham. I maybe we'll get somebody in before the season starts, but 1-2 at the most, and I think that's questionable. And if we do, they're not likely to start against Tottenham. And
because of fitness concerns, would that be your thinking? Because of fitness concerns, basically.
What's that?
For them not starting game week 1.
Yeah. I can't see anyone we sign now starting in game week 1.
Interesting. So almost, even though we're recording this in advance, and at the time of recording, we've had James Rodriguez heavily linked. You're saying that even if he walks in the door between now and we release this podcast, he ain't going to play in game week 1, so forget about it anyway.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Why do you specifically think that? Is that because you think Ancelotti's keen on having players integrated into a system and a style first before he plays them?
Yeah, and especially after what happened with Jean-Philippe Gbamin last season. And this is one of the things that the fans had voiced concerns. He'd done an interview before the season started, and he sort of made reference to the fact that he wasn't ready. And then we were all shocked when he was on the bench for the game against Crystal Palace. And I think it was Schneiderlin that got sent off, and Gbamin come on, but Davis was on the bench. And the thinking was, we'll put Tom Davis on because Tom knows what it's all about. Gbamin can't possibly up to speed yet. But Gbamin come on and then started against Watford, and then he broke down. We've never seen him since. So I think that will very much be fresh in the club, because obviously not having Gbamin, Ancelotti's felt that during his time because he's not had him to call upon. So I think they'll be reluctant to throw any new faces in, too early.
Yeah, when we spoke a month or so ago before the Bournemouth game, I said to you I had mass sympathy with that, because essentially it was the Idrissa Gueye replacement. And I don't think enough has been made of the fact that obviously A, you didn't have Gbamin this year, and because you didn't have him as well, B, just how much Gueye was missed, right? He was a pivotal player for you in terms of the energy he brought for the team. Really was an underrated footballer, and still is an underrated footballer, actually. So from that perspective, I had a little bit of sympathy whammed in the midfield area. And then you're working through with the likes of Gomez, you said. I understand what you're saying, actually. I ever watch him and I think, is he playing, or he's the best player on the pitch? I know what you're saying. Davis, I understand a lot of Evertonians are getting quite frustrated with, in the sense they're probably at the feeling of 3-4 years ago, this kid looked like people were talking after the Man City 4-0 game, is he going to be in England squad? And 3 years later hasn't really progressed at all. You've got others in there who, Schneiderlin, Delph, none of it's inspiring, unfortunately, is it? That's
even Iwobi.
That's the biggest issue. Hey, stop buying shit players from Arsenal.
And Iwobi at the time, some people did think that, was it 30 million that you paid for him? Wasn't too much money, but he ended up playing only half the minutes of the season. 1 goal over the season, no assists is not enough for Alex Iwobi.
No, I mean, it doesn't really matter what it was. It was too much based on how we played last season. But it was, it was mid-20s, sort of 23, 24 million pound,
right,
with obviously add-ons that potentially take it higher. I was quite looking forward to Iwobi signing for Everton, because I didn't watch a lot. I don't watch a lot of Arsenal, but when it did, and I did watch him play, and when he played against us, there was a lot about his game that I liked, and I liked the fact that he tries to find progressive passes. He doesn't, thankfully Schneiderlin's, gone out the door, but Schneiderlin, albeit he plays in a completely different position, but the reason why a lot of people didn't like Schneiderlin is because you always take the easy pass, which was invariably just backwards a couple of yards or sideways a couple of yards. Now, Iwobi, what I liked about him was he'd always look to carry the ball, take people on, play people in. And he started like that at Everton. I mean, I saw that bit of a highlights package a couple of days ago that was going around on Twitter, because some Arsenal fans were regretting selling him. I thought, well, you can have it back if you want. But he just looked a completely different player again to the one that we've seen at Everton. And what annoys me is I've seen this just time and time again over recent years with players, that even if you accept that they were decent at wherever we got them from, they come to our club and the levels just drop off dramatically, and it feeds into this sort of narrative of, we're just getting people who want an easy payday, want to take the mickey out the club, come for a good contract, big fat paycheck, and just go through the motions.
If it makes you feel any better, you're not the only ones that do it. Because where I go week in, week out, similar. You look at Anderson, Haller, all these guys, they didn't really, Haller has struggled, but it seems to be the way, overpaying a little bit on players, overpaying on wages, and they think they've made it.
Yeah.
Get into the Premier League.
And that's where now, whenever we're linked with anybody, invariably, there's a bit of a meltdown on Twitter because every Evertonian falls out with each other about arguing over the merits of any player. So it doesn't matter whether it's James Rodriguez, whether it's Allen, whether it's Decore. You've got all sorts of different views about whether they're just there for the money, whether we're paying too much, whether they're too old, whether we should be going for younger players. But at some point you've got to feel like the people at the club know what they're doing, because ultimately it doesn't matter what we think. They're not going to listen to us and do what we want. They're going to sign who they believe they should be signing, and that's why, as you boys know, part of my frustrations with Silva and other managers that we've had in the past is I just didn't believe they should have got the Everton job to begin with. Whereas, you can't question the credentials of Carlo Ancelotti. You can second guess his motives, just like I'm second guessing the motives of some of the players. But I firmly believe he's took the Everton job because he wants to build something. But at the same time, he's not used to finishing nowhere in a league. It doesn't happen for him. So he's not going to be happy managing and being responsible for the team that finished 12th. And that's why I think he will be pushing the director of football to be saying, okay, we're crap now. We're rubbish today. We have to get better players in. And it stands out like a mile that midfield is got to be in the bottom three in the Premier League. It just has to be. I don't see any other team get bypassed and have so little in the central midfield areas and even out wide. So I think Carlo Ancelotti will want players who he knows could come in and hit the ground running. Obviously, you bring someone in from a different league. There's a bit of a gamble there. But that's why I think there's so many players linked with Everton that have played for Ancelotti before.
So someone like Decore makes complete sense to me. I know you said on our Slack channel to a few of the patrons and that, like, you feel like this story with Decore comes up every year, and at the moment you kind of pinch of salt with it and stuff. But if the three players you mentioned there, Decore, Allen, and James, walk through the door, do you suddenly feel different about things?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think the fans need that uplift at the moment of something to hold on to and give them fresh optimism. Yeah.
I mean, when I'm talking about earlier about the fans debate and stuff, that's just the nature of probably all football fans. I'm sure you boys have probably seen the same sort of things when your club's linked with players. I mean, Højbjerg was a classic example. I jumped on Twitter when we were allegedly I put a bid in for Højbjerg and we were going to get him, and there was just loads of Tottenham fans ripping into Tottenham. Because, here we go, we're going to miss out on Højbjerg. Daniel Levy's letting him go to Everton. Why aren't we signing him? We're going to miss out again.
I'm glad I did that podcast on Patreon, Suj.
Yeah. But Evertonians kind of on Twitter, when you engage with them, they feel as if it's just us. We're a negative fan base. And no one else is like we are about our team.
Oh, everybody's negative, mate. Exactly. You're as good as your last result.
Yeah.
Essentially. And yours was bad, unfortunately. And no, but you've now had that twice. So you stewed on the Chelsea result for months, and now you've been stewing on the Bournemouth result for a month. Yeah. So you're actually going on it again. Whereas actually, if you'd finished game week 38 by winning 1-0 at Sheffield United, you actually might feel a bit different now. But suddenly you're looking at going, she's got fucking buried at home by a team who's just got relegated. That don't make sense. How are you meant to feel optimism then towards the new season with no new signings, etc.?
Well, exactly. And one of our biggest strengths is playing at home. And whilst there's no fans there,
you lose a massive advantage.
That's nullified, yeah. And that's a worry. As much as to talk about, and we know that the fans are potentially going to start coming back, but we don't know whether that's gonna remain.
When you talk about playing Everton away, I don't know if you feel about this, Suj, but almost when you say Everton away, it's almost impossible to do it without saying Goodison. Like you bring the venue and the crowd into that occasion of Everton away. No, I
Yep.
get that completely. To be honest, I wish we had you away first game of the season and that get it over and done with without the crowd there rather than have you at home first. No, I get that. I think you're one of the sides because of the close proximity of the pitch and the crowd to the game, etc. I think you're one of the clubs that suffered from it worse as well. Because I feel when we're talking relating back to that lack of motivation, and at the moment, unless something changes, I see you finishing in a similar league position. That motivation is going to continue and continue and continue until suddenly you need a few results, and then they'll show that actually they're far better than the sides. You're in no danger of going down or anything, mate. They'll show they're far better than that and put a couple of results together. Then you start again. That's how it will feel at the moment until they've got that motivation, which quite often will come from the crowd. You've mentioned to me before about the Goodison crowd can be quite harsh in terms of if it's not going well. But if it flips the other way, you get the atmosphere like in Ferguson's game, the Chelsea game, where they've lifted them players. You can visibly see that. And then they put in a good performance and won the game against a superior team, in fairness. So, yeah, I can completely see that you're missing Goodison probably as much as anybody else in the league, actually.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a a group of the supporters who have always argued that the fans were a negative influence on the team. And so the one good thing to come out of it was that, well, there's that theory out the window. Because
we joke about it as well. We call you Rex away and T-Rex at home.
Yeah,
and that's part why. Fuck, Goodison, that's going to be a tough game. Everton at home.
Yeah.
Everton away, target captains potentially sometimes.
Yeah. Well, like you say,
don't go captaining Harry Kane in game week 1. You've been told. Sean will probably tell you to do it, but you don't mean that, mate.
No. I'm all for people captaining Harry Kane in game week 1 because it'll just give me a better chance then of having a decent start.
Looking at Everton from an FPL point of view specifically, I mean, we're not going near the keeper at 5 million. We wouldn't probably go near him at 4.5. The defenders are all 5 or 5.5, other than Luca Digne, who's 6. Now, if you want a bit of Luca Digne, you're buying him for attacking returns as much as defensive returns, but same price as Doherty. So
I think you've missed something there, Suj.
What's that?
I think the right back is 4.5 million.
Well, that was one I was going to ask about because I think Luca Digne, you can say, is left back. You've got Keane or Holgate or Mina, any one of those 3 could be the 2 centre backs. Is Coleman now had it and Paddy Kenny's going to be right?
Paddy Kenny, what the Sheffield United goalkeeper?
Kenny,
what's his name? Kenny.
John
Joe Kenny. Sorry. Do you think he'll play ahead of Coleman? He got 0 points last year, right? So no minutes.
He was at Schalke.
Yeah.
Okay. On loan.
Yeah. I think Coleman will be first choice right back. Kenny will get minutes. However, they are looking for a right back. I think we'll probably get someone on loan.
Ryan Fredericks available, mate.
What's that?
Ryan Fredericks. You can have him if you want.
Who?
Ryan Fredericks. There you go.
Yes, Sean. You could have Aurier as well. At least you've heard of him.
Yeah.
My instinct is that Kenny will start the season, but you disagree with that.
Yeah, Coleman will start. I'm almost certain of that. I mean, well, I was going to say unless Kenny does something brilliant pre-season, but he's not really going to have an opportunity to. So
okay,
not enough games. I think Coleman will start the season. Kenny, I'm only expecting to get game time as a backup, and then if he goes and he gets an opportunity and he plays really well, then he's got a chance to nail down a spot. But I wouldn't be surprised if when the window closes, we've sold him or loaned him out again.
There are 3 midfielders in the squad we haven't mentioned by name. I don't know how we got this far and haven't mentioned Gylfi Sigurdsson.
Oh, yeah. I was hoping that
I
wouldn't mention him.
Surely he can't be as bad this season as he was last season. He's had some good seasons, scored a lot of goals. He's a good 12, 13 goal a season midfielder at his best.
Yeah, but you'd like to think so, wouldn't you? But obviously the change in role, the change in formation of the team, and then he's played as one of the 2 in midfield. It's not him, is it? It's not his game. He's had to adapt for the good of the team. But don't think he wants to play there. It certainly doesn't get the best out of him, and I can't see him. I just can't see him playing there for much longer. I can't see anyone coming in and signing him. Sadly.
No, I mean, the club's probably not going to sell, mate, 'cause they're going to get half their money at the moment. So the club's going to think, well, hang on, we want a return on our investment here, and have not really. I mean, to think that this time last year we were having a conversation with you, and we were all thinking we were going to go and get him, basically.
Yeah.
I can't believe what I've seen when I've watched him the last 12 months.
Right. But it's my fault. It's because I bigged him up that much, and then I put him in my zombie team. So,
to be honest, I don't think you need to pick him up. We all felt the same, Sean.
Yeah.
I broke him.
And anybody who says they weren't this time last year, considering Gylfi Sigurdsson, has got a very short memory, because we all were.
Season before last, 180 points, 8 million quid. You're going to take that all day long.
Yeah.
It's the point, isn't it?
Somebody did point out there's a very up and down historical nature to the scores, isn't there?
There has been.
Which I thought
he's brought the graph out. Sigurdsson's going to have a good season again. Well, I hope he does, because I got a lot of love for Siggy from his time at Spurs and stuff. He was a player I really liked. To be honest, when you got him again, I was kind of hopeful that we would have got him. He never really had the proper chance with us, because he was always competing with Ericsson for a position, basically, in terms of to play in the right place. I can't believe what I watched with him.
No.
Especially the player that was he wouldn't even put a tackle in when he played against us at a game at Tottenham during the restart. Shocking. We'll get off that one because we're not considering it, certainly. Bernard is one of the few creative players you have, mate. We know not an FPL asset, but that's why I wanted to bring him up, because he is creative on his day. And does he potentially have a benefit for Digne if he plays on that position on the left? Is there anything in that?
Well, at the beginning of the season, they had a really good partnership building, and this was the thing about Iwobi. It's all very much, you scratch your head and you wonder why the club does some of the things that it does, because we know we haven't got anyone on the right other than Theo Walcott. So we buy Iwobi, who predominantly plays on the left, and then Silva throws him in, which then means that Bernard comes out the team. And that just disrupted what we had going the previous season towards the end, which was a really good partnership. So, that left a few of us scratching our heads of why Silva done that. But there was, so many things that Silva left you scratching your head about. So I don't think, it helped Bernard, and I don't think it helped Iwobi, because all that happened was they were getting split game time, so neither were having a good run of games, and then obviously it did affect Luca Digne, and it affected the team, because for the first 15 games we were utterly, horrendous, and that's part of the fear that I have, that with the seasons being clumped together and there not being a good chance for Ancelotti to bring in his own players, work with them, and then have a fighting chance of getting off to a good start. I can almost just see it being like Groundhog Day all over again. And we start the season, we lose to Spurs, we're at home against West Brom without the crowd. And if we don't beat them, straight away, the fans, the negativity will start increasing. And then if we haven't made the signings that we think, that we need, it starts going the wrong way again. And we've seen this all too often over the years. It only takes a few bad results at the start of the season, and straight away the pressure is on the manager. Now that's what won't happen this year, because it's Carlo Ancelotti. But all that will happen is the negativity will go to the director of football and to Farhad Moshiri, because it'll be about how the club have failed to support the best manager that we've had in donkey's years. So that's why I wouldn't be sort of shouting out about getting any Everton assets in, because I think there's more potential for us to start poorly than there is for us to start well.
Before we just close on the fixtures a little bit, Sean, looking at the pricing of just forwards across the league as well, I hadn't actually realised this, but between Ings and Jimenez at 8.5 and the guys at 6.5, your Morpays, Woods, Antonios that might appeal, is actually only 4 players in between. 2 Everton guys, Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, and Abraham and Giroud at Chelsea. And Abraham and Giroud may well not even start the season for Chelsea. Suddenly, actually, I mean, obviously, the movement down from Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin certainly means that you can start with them because you can move down to any of these good, appealing 6.5 guys. But I think it also means that if they do have a slow start, the people that do go in and have interest in them, they ain't going to hang around long. You're just going to get binged straight away. Can you make any case for Richarlison at 8 or DCL at 7, mate?
Not as we talk today. But that could quite quickly change if, the 3 lads that we were talking about earlier, if we did sign them, then suddenly Dominic Calvert-Lewin at the price that he's at and with how we played last season, that can quite quickly become very, very attractive. Because with players like Alan in midfield and Doucouré, who we all know is a big threat in the box, if he's travelling with the ball, taking people's attention away, Dom's proven that he can get goals. And if we can get, we just don't get enough players in the box. And if we start doing that, then at the price that Dom's at, with the fixtures that we've got at the beginning, then I do think he's somebody that can be attractive for people. But at this stage today, I would just be saying, put him on the watch list, see what business Everton do, give it a few games at the start of the season. But then after that, he could be really, really good.
I think you summarised it really well there. And in my thoughts as well, I think probably not for the start of the season, but when you've got a coach like Ancelotti, and if he does do what he is capable of doing and gets the team playing well, I just feel with Everton at the moment, all of the players are priced just a little bit too expensive. The same price bracket as Wolves or Southampton or some of the Sheffield United assets, Burnley assets. And with the other teams, you just have consistency and reliability. Whereas with Everton, like we talked about this Rex T-Rex, but you, of all of those clubs, possibly on paper, you could say that you have the best manager. So if he can do what he needs to earn his money, basically, then maybe there will be a few Everton assets that will come back up as potentials. You said that Groundhog Day do the same again. Listen, you finished 12th last year. I would take 12 for my team, mate. That would be a victory.
It's not acceptable for Sean's.
No, but then we've talked about it with Jack at Burnley, right? You've got Southampton, Leicester, Wolves, Sheffield United, all playing for 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. It's a very, very competitive mid-table there. And you kind of have to take
Everton shouldn't be competing with these teams, with no disrespect to any of the rest
but you've got to be realistic at the end of the day.
I get that. And Sean is very realistic. I think he knows the way this is going at the moment. My point is that Everton shouldn't be competing with those teams. They should be doing better.
Yeah, but based on the squad that you have right now, I think 12th is a realistic target and where you might finish.
That's shit. If you tell any Evertonian that right now, and I agree with you, by the way, it's shit. Yeah. It's not expectation. If you tell an Evertonian now 9th, 10th next year, it's neither fucking here nor there to them, mate. Some of the other guys we're speaking to, and again with respect to them, would love 9th or 10th right now. 9th, 10th don't mean nothing to Evertonian, mate. It's fuck all.
Yeah, Everton, but they're not going to finish 6th or 7th.
Everton want to be trying to compete in the first instance, really, in my opinion, with those who are challenging for the top 6, which is probably going to be Wolves, Leicester, Tottenham, Arsenal, for example.
Yeah,
that's the first goal.
But how many years did it take Spurs to get themselves in a position where you were consistently up there?
Well, Spurs only got it right.
It took a long time.
Spurs only got it right once they started getting the philosophy right on transfers, which is buying.
But isn't that part of the problem where the expectations, and my club's very similar in that mindset with Everton, where you think we should be doing better, but you have to factor in the quality of the squad that you have right now, the quality of the other teams that are in and around you, how difficult it is to recruit good talent because everybody's suddenly in the marketplace for it, especially the teams that are trying to jump up and break up. I suppose I'm just a bit more realistic and accepting of like 11th, 12th, because it is very, very, very tough. And look, you were 15 points clear of relegation last year. We were a handful of points. Maybe I'm just looking up at the table thinking, you know what, it's all right up there in 12th.
It will do for you because you're sitting there 6 weeks ago shitting yourself that you're going to go down. So that's why you feel different about it and think, of course, you'd take 12 now. But honestly, get yourself 3 or 4 12th place finishes in a row, Serge. You won't be sitting there so, oh, this is all right. Then you're going to start thinking, well, I want my club to do something different. They've been there for 3-4 years ago. They're finishing 5th, 6th in the league, right?
Yeah, but the difference is for me and for Sean, for example, I've seen my team go down in recent years. So I know what relegation is like, which is the other side of it, right? If you give me mid-table security over relegation, I'm going to take that all day long. Like, yeah, sure, pushing for 6th, 7th, 5th, whatever it is. If it comes at the cost of then a couple of years later, you're getting relegated. Because we've been up as high as 5th and been relegated. I just don't like the yo-yoing. I'd take mid-table stability over like having ambitions that are too high. But realistically for next season, I don't see Everton finishing higher than 11th or 12th.
There is no way.
Unless, of course, there's always a caveat. You buy Decore, you buy Rodriguez, you buy...
Exactly, yeah. Well, Sean's saying that as well, and I agree. Yeah. He needs to, we've all said it. We almost, the three of us together, almost sick of saying it, that squad needs mass rebuilding, particularly in the centre of midfield. We've said it so many times. Yeah. And from my perspective, from an FPL point of view, the likes of Digne, who I think is 0.5 too much, yep. Richarlison, who I'm not even sure is going to play up front this year, don't particularly appeal to me. I think the best bit of your teammate is up front too, whether it's Calvert-Lewin or Richarlison playing even to the left of him. That's the best aspect of the team. That's fine. You can get on with that area with Moyes Keane in behind. It's the midfield needs fixing first, then look at the rest of the team. You could have a great back four all of a sudden, mate. If you ain't going to have any of the ball, it's not going to make any difference. That said, as much as I've got concerns for you, with that manager, there is no chance at all that you'll be involved in a relegation fight. Even if you didn't buy anyone, mate, I'm absolutely certain. There's one player I just want to ask you about we didn't mention, because it might be of interest to the FPL listeners, is Anthony Gordon's obviously 4.5 million. Got a few minutes at the end. He's probably into the bracket that he might be the 4.5 guy, or do you not see enough minutes in him?
I think he'll get minutes, but it's likely that he's going to share minutes with Iwobi for definite, but potentially Bernard as well. Because if he doesn't leave, given how much he's a free transfer, Bernard, but he's one of the highest earners at the club, so I don't see Bernard being frozen out. So Anthony Gordon's got to compete with Iwobi. He's got to compete with Bernard. If there are new players coming in, we don't know what formation we're going to be playing. There's so many question marks against him. So again, I think very much like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's one for the watch list. But I think Calvert-Lewin's far more likely to become relevant after the first few weeks of the season, whereas Anthony Gordon, I just think, will make cameo appearances throughout the season. If you start here and there.
Yeah, and I think there will be signings. You might find in your case as well that it might not be till later September maybe, but there is going to be signings. So I think someone like Gordon wouldn't particularly appeal to myself.
Yeah.
Keep your chin up, mate. It'll get better.
It will if we sign some players.
Yeah, I know. Listen, everybody wants signings, right? And listen, it might be that game week 1, you play well at Tottenham and win, and suddenly you feel differently, mate. And then you win the second game against West Brom and you're top of the league. You never know, right? We know it's unlikely. If I had to put you, gun to your head, you can't play FPL this year unless you have one Everton player, who would it be? Calvert-Lewin. There you go. There's the answer.
There we go. Sean, thank you for joining us. As always, it's always a pleasure to talk about Everton. For the listeners that don't already follow Sean, you can find him on Twitter at @spirit_blues, where we'll be tweeting about Everton and all the transfers that you're going to get, Sean. Hopefully, fingers crossed that at least a couple of these guys.
Let me tell you, the listeners, if this is the first time listening to Sean as well, when Everton start doing well, he'll be all over Twitter fucking telling you about it.
Fantastic. James, as we march on with Correspondence Week, do you know where we're going next? I don't, to be honest with you. We've been all around the country. Should we stay in Merseyside? Who knows?
We are staying in Merseyside, yeah.
So we're moving across to Liverpool next.
That's as the Sean would say, the red shite. We'll talk about them next.
As wherever you're listening to the podcast, make sure you're subscribed or hit the notification bell. You'll get alerted as soon as the podcasts go live. And most importantly, as always, stay safe, guys. Ciao for now.
Thanks, Sean. Cue music, please, man, child.